I'm Eric Wolf, and my experience in business peer groups has changed my life, especially my membership in Vistage, one of the world's largest CEO advisory groups. I'm an entrepreneur, a business owner, and a Vistage speaker on the power of marketing. This podcast is dedicated to the people who make those experiences possible, the peer group chairs. Every episode, I interview a Vistage chair who has dedicated their time to helping entrepreneurs like me succeed. My guest today is Mr. Chuck Andrews. Chuck is a Vistage chair from Chicago. He has a CE group, and Chuck comes with over 35 years of technology experience, which is something that we're definitely going to be chatting with him about. Welcome, Chuck. It's really nice to meet you.
Good to be here.
Excellent. So I'd actually like to start there, if that's okay. I'd love to get, because I'm looking at your bio, I see 35 years of tech experience. I see healthcare and life sciences. I see M&A. I would love to hear about your previous career before you were a Vistage chair.
Yeah. So I was a janitor when I was in grade school.
Nice.
My father was on the school board. He says, Chuck, we got a job for you. The janitor needs a helper this summer. And I did that for 6 years.
Oh, wow. That's
2 years
that's
yeah. And that gave me the opportunity when I graduated from high school and needed a job while I was in college to get a job at a little company called the National Cash Register Company
okay.
because they needed a janitor in a branch office.
How
Yeah,
fortuitous of all of
yeah.
all of the skills that you could have acquired during the summer.
It served
Uh,
me well. Actually, I have on my whiteboard up here, be your own janitor.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So that little job at NCR lasted 15 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I
And
went
so
from being a janitor to a technician to a sales guy, and went off from there. And I also, in that window of time, saw a company that had a 95% market share for its products go to a 30% market share for its products and kind of self implode. Um, and so I learned a variety of lessons there. And the next thing I did was started my own business with a partner. And then I learned that picking the right partner is a really smart thing to do, and I didn't do it.
I am I could go on and on about that, but I
Yeah,
saved
yeah,
that for my Vistage group.
there you go. Um, and then I went from running my own business to going back to the corporate world and went to work with a company that Motorola eventually acquired. So a company called Four Phase Systems, selling mini computers. Um, and so I was in that space, that kind of hardware, software, mostly hardware space. Um, and that's what I did with both um, Four Phase Systems, Motorola. A few more startups, one called Dell. I was with them when they were in 1990. It was the second guy on the street in Chicago. Um,
Just a wee little
yeah,
startup.
they were a $300 million company when I started.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And Michael would make sales calls with us, and because they were moving from a catalog consumer business to a direct sales to business. So that B2B business was launched in my time with the company. And that led to, I did about 6 years there, and then that led to a vice president of sales role with Toshiba. And I got a taste of what it's like to work for a Japanese firm. Um, it was great people in the US, and had a lot of fun and made a lot of money.
Well,
Um,
that all sounds real good. I'd be curious to, I would say that I've met a lot of Vistage chairs, but you're one of the few that I've met that comes in with sort of a majority sales background.
Yeah, very definitely.
It's a rare thing. And how has that helped you in your practice as a Vistage chair now?
Yeah,
Um, what what sorts of things do you help your group with that maybe?
yeah. Well, I'm a terrible salesman. I was a better sales manager. And that in itself is a lesson that your best salespeople aren't necessarily your best sales managers. Um, and the challenge for these chairs is actually a sales challenge to
It
grow their
is.
business. Yeah. And it's one that even an ex-old sales guy was challenged with. Um, I built it to 16 members, and then the pandemic kind of wiped that out. So now I co-chair a group. We added three groups together, and we've got 19 CEOs in that group. I love the co-chairing model in that I also do some other things. So my two other things are very complementary to my Vistage world, but I couldn't do that if I were trying to continue to build just Vistage groups.
The business development part of being a Vistage chair is something that I've heard a number of people say it's the hardest thing that, and
They've
these
ever
are
done. Yeah,
people, yeah, with
yeah,
years of executive experience, years of running their own businesses,
yeah.
um, and this is the hardest thing that they've ever done.
In
And
retrospect, I don't know that it actually is. I think I think much of that is just it's today. I'm going to talk about what's going on in my life today. So today it feels like the hardest thing. I
right,
forget about many hard things that have gone through. Um, we tend our brains tend to do that to us. One of the advantages I've had in my life is I as the books indicate in the back, I love to read. I'm a
yep.
lifelong learner. That's just typical of most business chairs. Um, and one of the things I read recently just is about um, the history we have in our heads that we think is accurate, both about ourselves and about the world at large. Um, and I'm realizing at my age today that um, some of the things I thought I knew aren't true. Um, and life is continuing to be a journey. Um, so it's
I
fascinating.
heard a phrase, and I used to keep it on my whiteboard that says, "Not everything you know is true," or something to that effect. And I was like, "Yeah, that is absolutely profound because there's so many things that we take for granted that aren't exactly the case."
Yeah.
How did you come to so you're working for extraordinarily large tech organizations, and time comes that you say, I'm good with this. It's time to do something different. What was the path that led you to Vistage, and how did you decide that leading peer groups was the thing that
Yeah.
was going to be the next step in your career?
So we're all situational leaders, I think. The So I mentioned that I was with a Japanese company called Toshiba,
The
and
little company, little.
yeah, I got it. I walked out there with an executive comp package,
Oh wow.
and I thought I'd retire. I mean, I walked out with $1 million and thought, I'm set for life. I'm going to retire. It lasted about a month and a half, and I realized I can't play golf and fish every day. And a guy that worked for me at Dell called me up and said, I'm starting a new company. And I'd done a few other smaller startups in between the various things I'd done in the past. So I did that. We started in January 2001 and got our first commitment for $5 million from venture capitalists early in the summer of 2001. First million in cash 3 weeks before 9/11.
Oh wow.
And when 9/11 occurred, they said, shut everything down. We're selling the IP. So I decided maybe I'll take a retirement again.
So second try. So we tried
Yeah,
retirement a
but it
second
was
try.
interesting. I lost my ass literally and financially. And at the same time, because of 9/11, our world changed and our attitudes about things changed. My wife and I jumped on our motorcycles. We drove through Tennessee and Kentucky and had a long 3-week trip on our bikes and just saw the display of of patriotism we'd never seen in our lives, right?
Absolutely.
And I said, I may have lost a lot of things, but I'm alive and kicking and having a good time. And so I took a couple of months and decided, actually, one of my daughters, an attorney, an M&A attorney, said, maybe you ought to consider selling businesses. You had enough
Okay.
experience doing businesses. So I launched a business brokerage practice in January 2002 and used an organization called BBN, Business Broker Network. Yeah. They're still alive.
Yeah.
Um, and I did that for about 7 or 8 years. And the same daughter said, for as much effort as you'd put into selling to small businesses, if you were in an investment bank, you'd be selling big businesses and making big money. So I got my licenses and joined an investment bank in McLean, Virginia, and ended up being the lead chair on a healthcare practice
Okay.
and had 8 other um, investment bankers across the country in my group, but we're all independent contractors. It was herding cats.
Yes.
So I joined a Vistage Trusted Advisors group to try to figure out how to herd the cats better. And they helped me realize that isn't going to work. So there, I mean, it was amazing how quickly a group of people can help you come to decisions that faster than you will do by yourself, kind of fiddling around, so to speak.
What was your, and because you'd had, I mean, at this point, um, already being on, I mean, really your second second and a half career at
Yeah,
this point that you
yeah,
have your sort of first peer group experience.
yeah.
Um, what was what was that? Was there a thinking at that point of like, man, I wish I'd had this 15 years ago. I wish I'd had this my entire career.
Yeah. Um, um, Dan Pink has written a book called Regrets. And if you
Hmm.
haven't seen it, it's worth reading. Because what you're talking about there is a sense of regret. And I, um, I recognize that there are a few things I do regret, but you can't go back and change them. So
No,
start
of course
forward,
not.
take the lessons that you have received from those things and move on. Um, and I think that the Vistage experience just showed me that standing on your own 2 feet and trying to do everything yourself is um, very time consuming.
Yeah, and not only is it time consuming, but I've had a similar talk with several other chairs where, we talk a lot about not only is it difficult from the sense of like, man, you're standing by yourself and so there's a lot of work, but you're standing by yourself and it's just you.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's a really, really hard thing to deal with sometimes.
it is. Yeah, even if you got a big fat ego the size of mine.
Um, what was so you then had your Vistage experience and you decided and you're
So bottom line is that they helped me understand that my investment banking role wasn't working well. So I wrote a reorg plan for the bank. They didn't like it. They said it's wrong time for us to do it. I think you're right, but it's wrong time. So I said, I think it's time for me to find another path again. And the Vistage, the concept of being a Vistage chair kind of came to fruition at the end of that year. And I started in January 2014 with launching my first group.
that's terrific. And so now you're 10 years in. What have you
10 years in and still love it.
still love it? And what have you
Actually,
learned?
um,
What's the best lesson that you've gotten in this last decade of being a Vistage chair?
I think the best lesson actually is the core element of this, and that is the hourglass, the issue processing model of having 12 people sitting around or 14 or 18 people sitting around and trying to help you figure out what it is you need to do. And consistently, that produces results for people. The
I
other
would
thing I did,
go
yeah,
ahead.
other thing I'd say I'd learn, and this you'll find, I'm sure, true of other Vistage chairs. I absolutely love my members. Um,
That's a very
when you
common
get,
theme.
yeah, when you get to know people and you're having support and diving deep with them, um, it's different than coaching. I don't consider myself a coach in the Vistage world. I consider myself a facilitator.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't consider myself a consultant. I do consulting work in the other areas of my life, but not in the Vistage world. Because once you start consulting, you take away the power of the group.
Right. There's a
Uh,
sense of agency
yeah,
that those folks need to have, and the idea is not for you to
yeah,
you have to be a leader without actually leading them and telling them what to do. It's more about leading them to find their own path, which is a really interesting spin on it.
yeah.
Was that difficult for you to adjust to?
I can't say as it was actually. I think that my temperament is similar to my father's. I am quite honestly a quiet person, as much as, although you can tell by the way I'm talking now. Um, and I'm a contemplative person. So the idea of bringing groups together and just simply encouraging them to talk and having a process that do it was very attractive to me personally.
And you're doing, and so you're working with a co-chair, and that's a model that's not it's not unheard of, but it's sort of rare in the
Yeah, it is a little
Vistage
bit. Yeah,
world.
there,
So
almost every market has two or three relate situations like that. Um, and
how do you balance that piece of it? What's that relationship like, and how do you, and what do you think the benefit has been to your members in having that kind of, rare arrangement?
yeah, yeah, I think we come from different backgrounds and we come from with different essence. Each of us have our own essence that's different. Um, John, my co-chair, John Traxelis, has an Anderson consulting background. So he has a strong financial background. Um, I've never had, I've, although I've sold accounting machines,
Right.
I've never had the depth of work in the accounting space. So we complement each other very nicely because he's got that accountant's headset and I've got the salesperson's headset. Um, and it works well for us. Um, we have our disagreements, which are very healthy disagreements about what should be done when. Um, but at the end of the day, we both have the same heart around what we want for our members and what it takes to get there.
No, that's really neat, and I know a couple of chairs that are in a co-chairing situation, and they've all said similar things about how that, that balance that it creates so that you get, more than one viewpoint, and that you can have um, those, the a healthy push and pull
Yeah,
between a couple of individuals, and it creates a richer perspective. And so I think that's really cool. And I imagine it's also difficult being that there aren't a lot of groups like yours that you guys can look to for um, you're just a different spin on the Vistage model. I think that like a lot of chairs run into trouble, and there's a lot of people that are doing similar things as them, and so they know who to call.
yeah.
But
We're in a big market. Chicago has got 36 Vistage chairs in it.
that's a lot.
And we have a very healthy what's called VCG, the Vistage Chair Group.
Hmm.
Uh, and so um, John and I are very active in the VCG, and we get a lot out of that. So, and we both treat it like we've got a kind of a part-time role for the CE group we co-chair, and he does more inside Vistage inside and Vistage emerging leaders group. I do more exit planning and
Sure.
positive intelligence coaching.
What's in terms of working with your members, um, what's the and it's a thing that I've learned that a lot of Vistage chairs talk about the things that their members teach them. In working with your members, what's something really important that you've learned actually from the person that's a member in your group?
Setting across the table. Yeah, I think the biggest thing I've learned is um, that in order for me as a chair to add value to my members, I have to stay focused on digging deep. Um, because if given the opportunity, they'll leave things on the table that they prefer not to discuss. And I think what I've learned is that the more my heart is open and the more I show that I care about what the outcome is, the easier it is to have those conversations. Um, and yet they're always very difficult conversations. I've I, I would say the one thing I won't say regret, I wish had done a better job of, is recognizing the fine point between um, facilitating as a chair and acting as a therapist. There are times when you really need to get to the therapy level, and kind of bridging that gap has been a challenge. When I know it, I should have brought someone else in to help that challenge.
And it's also obviously a difficult thing to do when you're as people who have been at it, that part is when somebody is opening up to you at that super deep level and your job is to listen but not to fix and and that's difficult. That's really hard.
Yeah, it is. That's that is the most difficult thing about this role. I've had people. Our golden rule is no one fails on our shift, right? But we've had people fail on our shift, and it's essentially because they just could not get past that step
Yeah.
of being completely candid and open. And Oprah's actually written a book with a psychologist in the University of Chicago that's very good. It's called "We Asked the Wrong Question." We should be asking what happened to you, not what's wrong with you. And things have happened to our members, to all of us, actually, that we wrestle with all our lives. Um, some of the things that have happened to my members, you wouldn't wish on anyone, but it's happened
Absolutely.
to them. It's happened to them, and they're still dealing with it 30 or 40 years later. Um, and we have to be um, cognizant of what they're going through and willing to help them get to the next stage.
It's a heck of a challenge.
It
Um,
is, you know.
so what kinds of members do you you've got the one CE group with your co-chair.
Mm-hmm.
What's a great company for that group? Who really thrives in your environment?
Oh, I'm not sure how to answer that. I think um, the people that thrive the most are the people that participate
Yeah,
and both give and take the most. Um,
the people who are most present.
yeah, well, yeah, press is a good word for it, but I think I think they have to have the courage to, to both say the things that need to be said to their peers and hear the things that need to be heard from their peers. Um, and that's definitely a courage issue.
Well, Chuck, I really want to thank you for joining me today. It's been a pleasure. Really enjoyed getting to know you. Your story is cool and it's unique, and I love it. What's the best way if somebody is interested in getting in touch with you because they have a question about Vistage
Yeah.
or maybe interest in joining your group? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
CEO15.us.
Very cool. One more
My
very quick.
website. Yeah, I was going to say my website's taken me years to get to where it is today, and I've rebranded it a few times, and it's according to ChatGPT, it looks pretty good now.
Excellent. I'm glad endorsed by ChatGPT. Please check it out.
Yeah.
And last thing, I almost forgot my favorite question, which is if you were sitting across the table right now from a business owner, executive, entrepreneur who was thinking about taking that plunge with a peer group, what advice would you give them?
Well, I think the number one thing is, are you, do you consider yourself to be a learner? Are you willing to recognize that you need to learn more? And are you willing to have other people help you? And obviously be open to helping other people too. But that's the big challenge, I think, to stepping into a group is that sense of, am I ready to kind of open up to a different level of learning?
That's a great answer. Thank you, Chuck. I really appreciate it. Thank you for joining me. Thanks for listening to this episode of Chairwaves. You can subscribe to our feed using Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your platform of choice. You can also visit chairwaves.com for more information. Chairwaves is hosted and produced by me, Eric Wolf, and to connect with me, you can visit my website at ewolf.live. That's EWOLF.live. And a disclaimer, while I love Vistage and CEO peer groups, this podcast is not owned by or affiliated with Vistage or any other peer organization. Thanks for listening.